Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Now, for more than 50 years, an unsuspecting but instantly recognisable tower block on the South Bank has been a symbol of the capital's contribution to the world of entertainment. The London studios opened for business in the 70s, with ITV franchise London Weekend Television churning out some of the nation's most watched programming. But the ever-changing skyline is losing the titan of telly as it's demolished to make way for new structures.
Hi there, guys. It's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about ITV, specifically pieces of ITV history being torn away before our very eyes. Now, you may be aware that this year, 2025, is the 70th anniversary year of ITV as a whole. It launched in its original form on the 22nd of September 1955. It marked the dawn of commercial television here in the UK. It offered the first kind of commercial television here in this country, and since then it's gone from strength to strength, from the glory days of the old regional structure that a lot of people have very fond memories for, to what it is now, which some would say maybe is a shell of its former self, but yet it continues to power on through. It's trying to adapt to the modern streaming world. We see that with its streaming service, ITVX. So given that this is a 70th anniversary, quite a big milestone for any broadcaster, especially one that's been around this long, you think we'd start seeing some more celebratory efforts. I mean, we are nearly a third of the way through the 70th anniversary year, and to be honest, I haven't seen much to show for it. We're going to talk more about anniversary stuff specifically a little bit later on, but in terms of this history being torn away, this specifically relates to the South Bank Studios. Now, you may recognise this tower, this location. This was, for a very long time, when it was built in the early 70s, it was used as a sort of headquarters for ITV, specifically the London Weekend Television bunch. Now, they, of course, operated in London over the weekend, as the name suggests, and despite its initial beginnings, people who ran it at the time wanted it to be a sort of BBC Two-esque sort of show, very artsy things, very different things. That didn't last long, but, the change in direction absolutely served LWT for the better, and it grew from strength to strength through the 70s, the 80s. It became one of the powerhouses of the network, which I think is quite impressive considering that these guys were only broadcasting on Friday evenings, Saturdays and Sundays. Do you know what I mean? They were operating just a few days a week, but maybe that reduced schedule helped them produce some of the finest quality content that ITV has ever seen as a whole. And this landmark, specifically the tower that you see there, that became sort of a key piece of ITV iconography, not just LWT. Its prominence on London's South Bank overlooking the Thames, which you could then say ties in with another company, obviously Thames. It all links together, and it is a key landmark. It might not be the most appealing landmark. It's very, 70s, a bit brutalist as well, but it had its purpose. But in 2025, this is all going away, which is a shame during the 70th anniversary year as well. You may have seen some news reports, particularly if you live in the London region, you might be getting some regional news reports that this whole area, not just the tower, but the whole South Bank Studios complex is going to be torn down and rebuilt into something completely new. And when you see some of the news clips of these hollowed out buildings, it is quite harrowing, and you can tell these meant more to particularly the people who worked there, the talent that worked there. They're a lot more than just buildings. Here's some testimonies from some people who did work there.
I hate looking back at the building here and seeing it the way it is, because this building represented to me a whole new world.
Now, in terms of what's going to replace this, it's apparently still going to be called the London Studios, and it's going to be this sprawling complex. When you look at the concept art for it, it does look quite nice. It looks quite appealing. And from some of the people involved in this redevelopment, here's what they're saying it's going to be like.
Creative production spaces on the upper levels for small groups to make and produce new media. We're going to have performance spaces, but in a smaller scale than the kind of big spaces you have for digital performances and public shows of a smaller, more intimate scale.
Now, I understand completely saying that there's going to be a focus on things like spaces to create digital content or smaller based content, because that is what a lot of content people consume now. As much as they still do enjoy television, television as a medium, as we've said ad nauseum at this point, doesn't celebrate the same sort of staying power, the same cultural impact that perhaps it once did. So it's no real surprise that they're catering more to this new form content. I think that in some ways you could argue that's a smart move. And I totally understand the nostalgia and the sadness of the, thousands of people, I'm sure, who worked at these premises over the last 50 years at seeing it go. Part of me does say, even though I have no personal affinity, and it is still sad to see because, again, this is part of ITV's history, quite a large part being torn apart before our very eyes. But this is just, this is history as we see it before us. Things change, things evolve, some things have to come down for new things to rise. I can only hope that the new London studios, in whatever shape they may take when they're actually built, honour the legacy of what this was, because, again, for a great many millions, they remember this iconography. They remember this tower. It was a key part of the ITV brand. It's just not the best news to receive, particularly during the 70th anniversary year. And we've had quite a few of this from ITV as well. I mean, we've had the closure of ITVB, which has been announced. We did a video on that if you want to go and check that out. And like I said in that video, whilst I don't necessarily have the strongest affiliation with ITVB whatsoever, I can understand it being a blow, particularly to those who enjoyed it. Now, in that case, we are getting a replacement in the form of ITV Quiz. That's launching in June of this year, and be sure we'll definitely check it out when the time comes. But there's a great period of change happening at ITV, and it's not necessarily being portrayed in the media as like the most positive. We need some positive stories. Now, given that this is the 70th anniversary year, what have ITV done to show for it? Well, we have this logo, which surprised me because I only saw this as part of the news article about the South Bank Tower coming down. It was just sort of thrown up on screen, and whilst it does incorporate like the ITV colours, the different shades of blue, does anyone else feel that this is a little bit slapdash, like this was literally thrown together for a news article? Well, it is now being bandied about on other pieces as well. The most I've seen, if you search ITV 70th anniversary, there are a few snippets on the ITVX website of regional news reports talking about how their particular region got started. There are pieces on Granada, there's one on Anglia, Tyne Tees, Central. And these are fascinating little looks, because when I've checked them out on the website, they offer some great archive footage from some of the earliest days of these different regions. So we're going back to the late 50s, because some of this hasn't been as publicly available as it has been now. And that's partly why I love anniversaries in television, because more often than not, we get these little insights, we get these little clips of the past that have either long been dormant, not available in great quality, and now they're being put out as best they can.
1 minute to 0. This is Anglia Television.
Here in the ancient city of Norwich, at the television studios of Anglia House, Anglia Television is on the air for the very first time.
And that's great, but that's all I've really seen so far. I mean, you can let me know in the comments if I've missed anything major, but in terms of celebrating this milestone, ITV haven't done all that much yet. I haven't seen, for example, a reprieve of previous idents of the regions, which I think could be such a simple thing to put in. Like, how simple is it just to whack on an old Granada ident or a Yorkshire ident, Central, any of the regions, really? Because the truth of the matter is, there are many generations of viewers, particularly those who still watch television in a very traditional linear way, who will have memories of those idents, those looks that'll, shape how they grew up watching television, and it'll be a nice little nostalgia trip. It can't be that expensive to resurface these idents, surely. And if they're not up to snuff quality-wise, then why not just remake them from the ground up? It can't be too difficult. So it's a bit disappointing to see that to begin with. That is a bit of a blow, I think, for the anniversary. I haven't yet seen either any sort of specific programming tailored to the 70th anniversary. Now, granted, I do admit I expect this, if it is happening, I expect this to come later on in the year, lest we forget that the anniversary itself is in late September. So if we're gonna, for example, get a new, say, documentary program or just a celebratory program featuring interviews and clips and stuff of ITV's 70-year history, I expect that to come in the autumn, whether that's around the anniversary date itself in September or maybe a bit later in October or November. We have no guarantee yet that a program like that is coming, and again, if we do and I've missed it, let me know in the comments down below. But as far as I can tell, we haven't seen that just yet. I mean, at this point, I'll happily take a rerun of the 50th anniversary program, The Story of ITV. Now, yes, that is now 20 years out of date, and you'd be missing a fair chunk of the history there, but at this point, I'll take anything, absolutely anything. Going back to the South Bank Towers, just to give you an idea of how big this was for ITV back in the day in terms of the programming. They opened in 1972 and they gave birth to some of the nation's favourite shows such as Upstairs Downstairs and even Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway. Other productions included World of Sport, On the Buses, Blind Date, Surprise Surprise, The Dame Edna Experience, Aspel & Co, and Game for a Laugh. Now, for maybe younger viewers, those names won't be as influential, but particularly, you know, if you're of that era, those are names you will instantly recognise. This was a absolute powerhouse. So yes, is this a sad moment for ITV? Absolutely. Like I keep saying, this is a big part of its history. One of the most recognisable parts of its iconography is being torn down. Yes, change is going to come. Yes, things have to evolve. I totally get that. But I can totally sympathise as well with the personnel who worked at those studios over the years, over the last 50 years, and just how much of an impact this has on ITV as a whole. Like I said, I can only hope that as this year progresses, as we go through the 70th anniversary more, that we start to get some more positive news from ITV. We have had glimmers. Obviously, they claim ITVX is doing a bit better now. It's doing better than it had previously, at least anyway, so that's a plus. But like I say, like specific documentary-based programs or celebratory programs, maybe dig out some archive programs to celebrate the legacy of the past 7 decades. I really hope that comes sometime in this year, because I think to ignore it or to not lean into it would be a shame. I know that times are really tough for the UK industry right now in television. I know that costs are spiraling, that there's a big talent exodus as well, and that, you know, there's a whole manner of things that mean making television in the UK, particularly for the broadcasters like ITV, BBC, Channel 4, etc., is really difficult. So maybe diverting a lot of time to what some may call a self-indulgent anniversary celebrations may not be the right move. However, I'd argue that, you know, 70 years is a long time. It's a big legacy for the world of television, especially in this country, and I think ITV definitely could be doing a little more to celebrate that. If you do want some form of celebration, though, I highly recommend you check out The Rewind, which was a lovely little piece to watch about celebrating 70 years from ITV. It's headed up by Rob Osborne, who works over at ITV. And again, this is the most celebratory efforts I've seen so far on behalf of ITV. You can go and check that out on the ITV website. Give it a like, give it some support, because if they get the support, then they could make more episodes, which would be fantastic. And again, it's these sort of things that we need to see more of from ITV. So big up to Rob and his team for putting this out, because it was a great little watch, and it's the most celebratory I've felt for ITV all year. Give them a watch, give them a like, give them a share around. It'd really do some good for this anniversary year. But that is all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel as well. We'd love to have you aboard. Let me know your thoughts on how you think ITV's 70th anniversary year is going so far. What more could they do? What do you think they're missing out on? Let me know all that in the comments. And until the next one, I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
The thing I remember about this place are the people, and they were kind to me, and they were funny, and they were supportive and generous spirited, and I shall miss those people. The building, not so much. Every landmark in the city is a bit like everything in your house. Everything has a memory, and if you can't retain it in here, what's the point of keeping it?
Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Sean Knock, Dord Khan, Liam Domain, AJ Mac 200017, Deck, Jen, Traffy, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Marnanel Thurman, 40-something Manchild, Jerry Ralph, John McLeod, James Wallace, Ben, Stephen Oliver, Tegan, Shadowfiend 180X, Swan Bronson, Adam Gamer, Fonzie Daz, Seraphic Euphoria, Real Random, Matthew Elliff, Pigeon's House, and Shah H, our AMTV staff members.